Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines history, human error, and mind-boggling value, a story about the 1945 wheat penny, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts around the globe, a coin that, due to a combination of production errors, minting mistakes, and sheer rarity, can fetch astronomical sums of money, with some examples reportedly valued at $31 million, and today we are going to explore why this seemingly ordinary penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in numismatic history, examining the errors, mistakes, and unique possibilities that make it so valuable. Starting with the background of the coin itself, the 1945 wheat penny was minted during a pivotal time in American history, at the tail end of World War II, when the United States Mint was operating under intense pressure to produce coins quickly and efficiently, and during this period, resources were strained and mistakes, though unintentional, became part of history. The 1945 penny is part of the Lincoln Wheat series, which ran from 1909 to 1958, featuring the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse, a design beloved by collectors for its simplicity and historical resonance. Yet it is in the details and anomalies of this particular year that extraordinary value emerges. One of the most notorious aspects of the 1945 wheat penny involves the infamous 1945 steel penny. Though technically rare, many collectors also focus on 1945 pennies made from unusual alloys, particularly copper and zinc variations. During the war, the mint faced shortages of copper due to the war effort, and as a result, steel was often used as a substitute for coinage, creating the infamous steel cents that are magnetic and extremely fragile due to rust susceptibility. However, within the 1945 mintage, some errors occurred where leftover copper planchets from earlier years or improperly alloyed metals were struck with 1945 dies, creating coins that are essentially wrong metal pennies, and such anomalies are incredibly rare, making them extremely valuable. Adding to the intrigue, the 1945 penny also presents the potential for double die errors, one of the classic errors in coin collecting, where the design is struck twice on the same coin in slightly different positions, producing a doubled image. In some cases, collectors have observed doubling on the date or on Lincoln's features, and when the doubling is strong and visible to the naked eye, these pennies become prized specimens. The combination of wartime production pressures and human oversight made such mistakes more likely, and surviving examples in mint condition are exceedingly rare, which only heightens their value. Another fascinating error that can appear on the 1945 wheat penny is the off-center strike, a misalignment of the die that produces a coin where the design is shifted to one side, leaving a portion of the blank planchet exposed. Coins with off-center strikes are not only visually striking but also rare, especially when the strike is significant yet the coin remains intact without severe damage. Collectors often seek out these anomalies because each is unique. No two off-center strikes are exactly alike, and this uniqueness drives desirability and market value. Yet the story does not end there. Among the most discussed and valuable 1945 pennies are those with die cracks, small fractures in the coin die that transfer onto the coin surface as raised lines or irregularities. Die cracks may appear as thin raised lines across Lincoln's face, the wheat stalks, or even across the date, and while at first glance, these may seem like imperfections, collectors value them because they tell a story of the minting process and capture a moment of historical production error. In some cases, dramatic die cracks can dramatically increase the coin's value, particularly when paired with other anomalies. The interplay of multiple errors on a single coin, such as an off-center strike combined with doubling or die cracks, is especially coveted, creating a perfect storm of rarity and collectability that can push the value into the millions. Adding to the allure is the 1945 pennies mint mark variations, particularly those from the San Francisco Mint, designated by an S on the coin, which had smaller production runs compared to Philadelphia or Denver mints, making surviving specimens scarcer, and when errors appear on these S-mint coins, such as wrong metal composition, off-center strikes, or die cracks, the value can increase exponentially. Some 1945 S-wheat pennies with dramatic errors have achieved valuations reaching tens of millions of dollars, an almost unbelievable figure for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent. Yet the market for rare coins is driven by scarcity, historical significance, and collector demand, and in the case of the 1945 wheat penny, all these factors converge in a perfect storm: the potential for misprints, alloy inconsistencies, and mint mark peculiarities creates endless possibilities for rarity. Even among coins from the same year, no two pennies are exactly alike, and the human fascination with finding the perfect error drives the intense interest in high prices. Further compounding its allure is the story behind these coins, the notion that a simple human mistake at a mint over 75 years ago can now result in a coin worth millions captures imaginations worldwide. Stories circulate about how some of these coins were accidentally tucked away in rolls of pennies, forgotten in drawers, or discovered in circulation decades later, with collectors and numismatic experts swooping in to authenticate, grade, and value these extraordinary finds. Grading is another critical factor that influences the 1945 wheat penny's market value. Coins are assessed based on condition, with the Sheldon scale ranging from poor, P1, to perfect mint state, MS 70, and a coin with extreme errors in top condition can command prices that far exceed more common variations. A 1945 wheat penny exhibiting strong die doubling, a perfect off-center strike, or rare alloy composition graded at MS 65 or higher could easily enter the multi-million-dollar range. Adding to this, provenance plays an important role. A coin that can be traced back to a reputable source or a historically significant collection carries additional prestige and value. The combination of rarity, error type, condition, and provenance creates a hierarchy of desirability that can result in record-breaking sales. Yet it is also the mystique surrounding the coin that fuels its legendary status. Collectors often debate whether certain specimens even exist, with rumors of the most extraordinary errors only adding to the intrigue. This speculation, coupled with the thrill of discovery and the potential financial reward, keeps the 1945 wheat penny in the spotlight of the coin collecting world. Further compounding its allure are the theoretical possibilities that make this coin endlessly fascinating. For example, one might imagine a 1945 wheat penny that combines multiple extremely rare anomalies: a double die strike, an off-center minting, a wrong metal composition, dramatic die cracks, and perhaps even an unusual mint mark variant, all in near-perfect condition. Such a coin, while possibly existing only in theory, embodies the ultimate prize for collectors and drives imaginative discussions and high-stakes bidding. And even beyond these extreme cases, every 1945 wheat penny has the potential to reveal small quirks or anomalies invisible to the casual observer. And because every coin went through human handling, mechanical processes, and chemical reactions over decades, minute variations in strike, luster, planchet quality, and metal composition all create opportunities for surprises that can significantly alter value. As collectors carefully examine coins under magnification, looking for subtle doubled features, die clashes, or planchet flaws, the excitement of potentially discovering a hidden treasure is palpable. These subtle errors, when properly documented and graded, can transform a common penny into a sought-after artifact, bridging the gap between ordinary currency and extraordinary collectible, and the 1945 wheat penny exemplifies this transformation. More than almost any other coin in U.S. history, it represents a perfect convergence of historical context, human error, manufacturing anomalies, and the passage of time, all contributing to a narrative that elevates it far beyond its original 1-cent face value. The coin's story is enriched by the circumstances of its creation, wartime shortages, rushed production schedules. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Today we are going to explore one of the most remarkable and sought-after pieces in numismatic history, the 1951 wheat penny, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors due to its unique errors and the staggering valuation it commands, estimated at an astonishing $1.7 million. And as we journey through the history, errors, and possibilities that contribute to this coin's immense worth, you will see why it has become a legend in the coin collecting community. First, let's set the stage by understanding the era in which this coin was minted. Post-World War II America saw an economic boom, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins in vast quantities to meet the needs of a growing population and an expanding economy. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, had by 1951 become a staple of everyday commerce. And yet, even in such a mass-produced coin, anomalies and mistakes could occur, which is exactly what makes the 1951 wheat penny so special. It is not just a simple copper coin with the image of Lincoln on one side and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. It is a coin that embodies a series of production quirks, missteps, and rare variations that are incredibly rare to find. One of the primary reasons for the 1951 wheat penny's astronomical value is the phenomenon known as the double die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin has a misalignment during the engraving process, resulting in a doubling of certain design elements on the coin. Collectors have identified that on certain 1951 wheat pennies, the date and lettering can appear doubled or shadowed, a subtle yet unmistakable indication of this error. The doubled die creates a visual anomaly that is not only aesthetically intriguing but also highly coveted by collectors because it represents a very limited production mistake that was not corrected before the coins were released into circulation. Another fascinating aspect contributing to the 1951 wheat penny's value is the occurrence of off-center strikes, where the coin blank, or planchet, is not properly aligned within the coin press, resulting in part of the design being missing or truncated. Some 1951 wheat pennies have been found with significant off-center strikes, and the more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the potential value. In some extreme cases, a coin can appear to be a partial imprint of Lincoln's profile or the wheat ears, which creates a visually striking and unique piece that collectors are willing to pay top dollar for. Alongside double dies and off-center strikes, there are also instances of repunched mint marks, another type of minting error that can drastically increase a coin's desirability. While the 1951 wheat penny was primarily struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where no mint mark is present, there are also varieties produced at Denver, indicated by a small d beneath the date, and on rare occasions, errors occurred when the mint mark was punched more than once in slightly different positions, creating a repunched mint mark effect that adds a layer of uniqueness and scarcity. Beyond these errors, another fascinating dimension to the 1951 wheat penny's allure is the metal composition, primarily 95% copper and 5% zinc, and while most coins are fairly consistent in their color and patina, some coins exhibit unusual toning due to environmental exposure or chemical reactions over decades. These naturally occurring variations can result in coins with vibrant hues of red, brown, or even spotted patterns that are aesthetically pleasing and highly sought after. Coins with exceptional toning often sell for premiums far above the baseline for even error-free examples. In addition to these production-related anomalies, there are also die cracks and die breaks, minor defects in the metal die that strike the coin, which over time develop into raised lines or ridges on the coin surface. 1951 wheat pennies with prominent die cracks are particularly interesting because they provide a visual narrative of the coin's production history. These imperfections are essentially frozen snapshots of the minting process, and for dedicated collectors, owning such a piece is akin to holding a tangible fragment of history. Another contributing factor to the coin's massive value is condition rarity. While millions of wheat pennies were minted in 1951, the survival rate of coins in pristine, mint state condition is incredibly low. Over time, most coins were heavily circulated, resulting in wear, scratches, and loss of detail. However, the few examples that remain with sharp details, full rims, and well-preserved surfaces are exceedingly rare, and when such a coin also happens to include a significant error like a double die or off-center strike, the combination creates a perfect storm for a high valuation. Moreover, provenance and documented history play a critical role in establishing the coin's worth. Coins with verified ownership history, especially those previously held in notable collections or discovered in extraordinary circumstances, often achieve higher market values because collectors not only value the physical characteristics but also the story attached to the coin. The 1951 wheat penny has featured in multiple high-profile auctions where bidding wars have driven the prices to unimaginable heights, the psychological allure of owning a piece worth over $1 million also contributes to its mystique, but let's also consider the role of rarity in a broader sense. While the 1951 wheat penny as a date is not inherently scarce, the combination of high-grade condition and significant mint errors dramatically reduces the number of coins available to collectors. Scarcity in the numismatic world is not just a matter of total production but of surviving examples with the characteristics that collectors prize, and in this context, the 1951 wheat penny stands out as a coin that is both historically significant and extremely difficult to find in its most valuable forms. An additional layer to the 1951 penny's collectible nature is the community and research surrounding it. Numismatists have spent decades cataloging and studying various errors, variations, and anomalies, creating a robust body of knowledge that both informs and excites collectors. Specialized guides and publications detail minute differences in doubling patterns, die cracks, planchet flaws, and strike quality, and collectors often chase these distinctions passionately, understanding that even a slight variation can translate into a significant increase in value. The 1951 wheat penny story is further enriched by the human element, the fact that these errors were unintended, often unnoticed until decades later, and the coins have survived through countless hands, wallets, and cash registers, adds a narrative of chance and serendipity that makes the coin more than just a monetary object. It becomes a symbol of history, luck, and discovery. To truly appreciate why a 1951 wheat penny can reach the $1.7 million mark, one must consider the interplay of multiple factors: historical context, minting anomalies, physical condition, scarcity, provenance, market dynamics, and the intrinsic thrill of owning a piece of American numismatic history. Each error, whether a doubled die, off-center strike, repunched mint mark, die crack, or unusual toning, contributes uniquely to a coin's identity and allure. While collectors may debate the nuances of grading, appeal, and error significance, the convergence of these elements in a single 1951 wheat penny creates a perfect example of how meticulous detail and rarity combine to produce extreme value. Furthermore, the coin's role as a collectible extends beyond its individual features into a larger narrative about American coinage, post-war society, and the technological and human processes that shaped minting practices. Understanding the errors and mistakes in the 1951 wheat penny is also an insight into the limitations of mid-20th century minting technology. The manual and semi-automated processes were prone to misalignment, doubling, and other imperfections that today are celebrated as rare collectibles. For instance, die preparation, engraving, and hubbing processes were far more labor-intensive and susceptible to human error than modern computerized minting, which means that each anomaly is a testament to a period where craftsmanship, error, and chance intersected. Collectors value these imperfections because they are markers of authenticity, history, and the tactile story of a coin's creation. Some 1951 wheat pennies even feature subtle planchet lamination flaws, where tiny layers of metal have separated or bubbled due to impurities in the metal. Next, 1944 wheat penny. Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating and high-stakes stories in the world of coin collecting, the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors and investors alike, not just for its historical significance, but because of the remarkable errors and mistakes that make it extraordinarily valuable, with some specimens reportedly worth up to $12 million. And as we explore this coin in depth, you will see why it is considered one of the rarest and most sought-after pennies in existence, starting with its unique production context, as the 1944 wheat penny was minted during the final years of World War II, a period when the United States Mint was navigating challenges in metal composition due to the war effort, making the standard copper planchets used in previous years scarce and prompting the Mint to innovate with alternative materials like zinc-coated steel in 1943, before returning to copper in 1944, yet even in 1944, some planchets were mistakenly produced from leftover 1943 steel or improperly recycled copper, leading to a small number of coins that exhibit dramatic anomalies such as the infamous 1944 steel cent, which appears silver gray rather than the usual bronze, and these anomalies are compounded by other errors including double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and die cracks, each of which adds layers of complexity and rarity to this coin, with collectors seeking any unusual characteristic that distinguishes one 1944 wheat penny from another, such as doubled lettering on the obverse or reverse, where Lincoln's portrait or the inscriptions can appear thicker, shifted, or even slightly duplicated due to a misalignment of the dies during the striking process. And these doubling errors are particularly prized because they indicate an imperfection in the minting machinery that only occurred in a tiny fraction of the total mintage, making them incredibly scarce, while off-center strikes present another fascinating dimension, where the coin's design is noticeably shifted to one side, leaving part of the copper planchet exposed without the full impression of Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks on the reverse, creating a visually striking piece that is immediately recognizable to seasoned collectors and significantly more valuable than a standard penny. And when you consider repunched mint marks, another rare feature found on certain 1944 wheat pennies, these occur when a mint worker or machine attempted to stamp the mint mark, such as a D for Denver or S for San Francisco, more than once, leaving faint shadows or doubled impressions that experts use to verify authenticity and provenance, and die cracks, small fissures that run across the coin caused by wear or flaws in the die itself, can also transform an ordinary penny into a coveted collectible because each crack is unique and impossible to perfectly replicate, contributing to the individuality of each coin and appealing to numismatists who prize one-of-a-kind specimens. Furthermore, the context of the 1944 wheat penny's production adds an intriguing historical backdrop, as returning soldiers and citizens were using pennies daily for small transactions, meaning that many coins were heavily circulated, reducing the likelihood of finding a pristine example. And the survival of any high-grade or error-filled coin from that year is a testament to its durability and the meticulous care taken by the few who recognized their potential value. And beyond these physical errors, there are also fascinating stories of minting anomalies that feed into the mystique of the 1944 wheat penny, such as the discovery of coins with lamination errors where layers of metal partially separated due to impurities in the planchet, or coins with striking anomalies like broad strikes where the metal was pressed more forcefully than usual, causing unusual spreading and flattening of the design. Each of these variations not only increases rarity but also provides a tangible connection to the human and mechanical processes behind mid-20th century coin production, and collectors who can authenticate these coins often find that provenance, condition, and specific error types dramatically influence the value, sometimes making the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one worth millions. And for the 1944 wheat penny, one of the most intriguing possibilities involves the accidental use of 1943 steel planchets that were coated with copper due to mismanagement or mislabeling at the mint, creating coins that visually resemble normal 1944 copper pennies but are slightly off in weight or magnetic properties, making them nearly impossible to detect without careful inspection. And when authenticated, these accidental steel-on-copper coins are among the rarest of all, offering collectors a chance to own a piece of history that directly reflects the intersection of Human error, wartime urgency, and minting technology, and this rarity is compounded by market dynamics, as demand among collectors who understand these errors far outstrips the number of surviving coins, driving astronomical valuations that can reach into the multi-million-dollar range, and auctions and private sales of verified 1944 wheat pennies with significant errors have demonstrated this, where bidding wars erupt over specimens with desirable characteristics, illustrating how both scarcity and desirability converge to create extreme market value, and it is not just the physical coin itself that captivates collectors but also the stories, rumors, and provenance that accompany each piece, with some coins having well-documented histories linking them to particular mint batches, private collectors, or even accidental discoveries in circulation decades after they were minted, adding layers of intrigue and narrative that enhance their collectability and monetary value. And when we examine the specifics of the errors in greater detail, we find that die doubling, for instance, can affect various parts of the coin including the date, Lincoln's cheek, jawline, or the wheat ears on the reverse, and experts often grade these based on the intensity and clarity of the doubling, using terms like strong, medium, or weak, which directly influence market valuation. And off-center strikes are similarly graded by the percentage of the design that is missing, with more dramatic misalignments commanding higher prices, while repunched mint marks are evaluated based on visibility, alignment, and rarity of the particular mint mark style, and die cracks are assessed for their length, location, and visual impact, all of which combine to create a nuanced hierarchy of value for 1944 wheat pennies. And beyond these more common error types, there are even more exotic variations such as clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to an improperly cut metal blank, or lamination splits that expose underlying layers of metal, creating a distinct texture and appearance that is highly prized among specialists. And the 1944 wheat penny also features some of the last examples of the classic wheat reverse design before it was gradually phased out, making it historically significant in addition to being monetarily valuable, and collectors often focus not only on the errors themselves but also on the coin's condition, using grading systems like the Sheldon scale, where coins are meticulously examined for surface wear, luster, strike quality, and any imperfections, with high-grade examples fetching astronomical sums when combined with notable errors. And when you consider the broader historical and cultural context, the 1944 wheat penny becomes even more compelling, as it reflects the end of the war, the return to domestic production of essential goods like copper, and the evolving techniques of the U.S. Mint during a period of intense pressure and innovation, and each coin carries a story that connects it to this historical moment, making it more than just a piece of metal, but a tangible artifact of American history. Last. Today we're going to explore the story of the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that might look ordinary to the untrained eye but has captured the attention of collectors around the globe because of its extraordinary value, often reaching an astonishing $5 million under the right circumstances, a price that might seem unimaginable for a coin that originally circulated for just 1 cent. But the truth behind this coin's value lies not in its face value but in the unique errors, mistakes, and historical circumstances that make it a true numismatic treasure. The 1946 wheat penny was minted just after the end of World War II, a time when the United States was transitioning from wartime production to peacetime needs, and during this period, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were producing large quantities of pennies. Yet even in such mass production, mistakes can occur, and in the case of the 1946 wheat penny, several varieties and errors exist that can dramatically affect its value. One of the most notable errors is the so-called double die obverse, where the coin's front side, which features Abraham Lincoln's portrait, shows a doubling effect on the inscriptions, particularly the word liberty and the date, 1946. This doubling happens because the coin die was accidentally impressed twice during the minting process, slightly misaligned. And such double-die pennies are highly sought after because they are both visually striking and extremely rare. Another major factor contributing to the 1946 wheat penny's value is the presence of minting errors such as off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned in the press, resulting in part of the design being cut off or appearing skewed. These off-center strikes can vary in severity, and the more dramatic the misalignment, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Planchet errors also play a significant role. For instance, a coin may have been struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination, creating unusual size and metal inconsistencies that are highly prized by collectors. There are also instances where pennies were struck on damaged or defective planchets, resulting in cracks, laminations, or incomplete features. Each of these anomalies adds to the uniqueness of the coin and can dramatically increase its market value. In addition to manufacturing errors, environmental factors and the coin's condition are critical. The 1946 wheat penny can appear in grades ranging from heavily circulated to uncirculated mint state, and a pristine uncirculated example with full detail and original luster can command prices exponentially higher than one with wear and damage. Collectors often rely on professional grading services to authenticate and assess the condition of the coin, assigning it a grade from 1 to 70 based on a variety of factors including surface preservation, strike quality, and overall eye appeal. A 1946 wheat penny graded at the very top of the scale can easily reach the multi-million-dollar mark. Another fascinating aspect is that the 1946 wheat penny is part of the Lincoln Cent series that began in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, making it historically significant as part of one of the longest-running coin series in American history. Collectors value this continuity and the subtle changes in design and minting processes over the decades. In 1946, subtle differences in the mint mark locations and die varieties between the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints also create subtypes that can be more rare than others. For example, certain Denver mint coins with specific die cracks or repunched mint marks are known to be extremely rare, and identifying these features requires a trained eye and a deep understanding of minting practices of the era, further adding to the coin's allure and collectible value. The story becomes even more interesting when considering the historical context. 1946 marked the first full year of peacetime production after World War II, and the U.S. Mint had just begun returning to regular copper composition for pennies after the temporary use of zinc-coated steel in 1943. Although the 1946 wheat penny is composed of the standard 95% copper and 5% zinc, subtle inconsistencies in metal composition, weight, and striking pressure can still create coins with minute variations that collectors obsessively seek. Some coins exhibit unusually heavy strikes that enhance details, while others have weaker strikes that leave elements of Lincoln's portrait or the wheat ears faint. Each variant tells a story of the minting process and adds to the intrigue. A particular rarity within the 1946 wheat pennies is the filled 6 and filled 9 error, where the digits of the date appear partially clogged due to die deterioration or debris in the die during striking. These coins are highly desirable because the effect is visually dramatic and the population of known examples is extremely low. In some cases, these filled digits can transform a seemingly ordinary coin into a high-value collectible worth hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars depending on condition. In addition to these die and planchet errors, some 1946 pennies exhibit striking anomalies such as die clashes, where part of the design from the opposite side of the coin is impressed onto the surface, creating ghost-like impressions of lettering or imagery. These are subtle and fascinating features that make each coin unique. Advanced collectors often use magnification and careful lighting to identify these clashes, which may not be visible to the casual observer, further increasing the coin's numismatic interest. The market for 1946 wheat pennies is also influenced by provenance and rarity. Coins with documented histories, particularly those that were part of early collections or owned by prominent numismatists, often fetch higher prices than comparable coins without provenance. Auction Results and private sales frequently highlight that even minor errors on a historically significant coin like the 1946 wheat penny can multiply its value dramatically. For instance, a coin with a rare double die or an extreme off-center strike that comes directly from an original mint roll in pristine condition can easily surpass the $5 million mark. Another layer of complexity comes from the ever-present factor of demand. The number of serious collectors specializing in wheat pennies has grown over the decades, and as more collectors seek rare 1946 examples, competition drives prices up, especially for coins with dramatic errors or superior grades. Even coins with subtle or less visually obvious errors can be highly valuable if the population is extremely limited, highlighting the interplay between rarity, error type, and collector demand in determining market value. Beyond the individual errors, certain combinations of features can create coins that are virtually one of a kind. For instance, a 1946 wheat penny with a combination of a filled digit, a double die obverse, and a slight off-center strike is exceedingly rare, and such a coin could attract attention from multiple bidders in a high-stakes auction. In fact, stories exist of collectors spending millions on a single wheat penny because of its singular characteristics, historical significance, and perfect preservation. Demonstrating how these coins are more than currency, they are tangible pieces of history that capture the fascination of enthusiasts and investors alike. In addition to the visual and historical factors, the 1946 wheat penny also represents the technical evolution of the minting process. The dies used in 1946 were carefully engraved and hardened, yet the mass production of millions of coins inevitably led to occasional mistakes that became collectible anomalies. Each error tells a story of the human and mechanical processes involved, whether it was an uneven die pressure, a misaligned planchet, or a fluke in the striking process. These seemingly small events create the rare coins that collectors prize. Moreover, the wheat design itself, featuring Lincoln on the obverse and wheat stalks on the reverse, adds aesthetic appeal that endures to this day. The reverse wheat ears design was used from 1909 to 1958, making these pennies instantly recognizable and historically iconic, and the combination of classic design, post-war context, and minting errors creates a powerful collector appeal. The 1946 wheat penny also illustrates how error coins serve as a window into minting practices and quality control of the era. By studying double dies, filled digits, off-center strikes, die cracks, and other anomalies, numismatists gain insight into the production techniques, challenges, and even the human elements at play in coin manufacture. This blend of artistry,